Good morning, fifth grade. We're going to start chapter 7. It says, let's start with our quick write. Who has Esperanza met since arriving in America? How has she reacted to the people she has met? And so I'm thinking back to what you guys read for homework, specifically about Isabel and Marta. And Marta is a girl who lives at another camp. And she, notices that Esperanza, is giving off these airs like she's better than them. And she says, so you're a princess who's become a peasant. Where's all your finery? So, and then Esperanza doesn't say anything, and she's like, what's the matter? Silver spoon stuck in your mouth? And so she's kind of making fun of Esperanza. She's making fun of the fact that Esperanza is now poor, which is really mean because Esperanza lost her father and then she lost everything else. So she's being really rude to Esperanza. And, Miguel tries to take up for her, and so does Isabel. But Marta does not feel sorry for Esperanza at all. And so, she continues to go back and forth with her, and Marta talks about how horrible the conditions are at the camp and how, they're trying to fight for, more rights. And anyways, in the last section, she says, just so you know, this isn't Mexico. No one will be waiting on you here. So she still hasn't, let it go the fact that Esperanza used to be wealthy, and she's, trying to put Esperanza in her place. And it says, Esperanza stared back at her in silence. The only thing she did understand was that she did not like Marta. And so you can talk about Marta when you're doing your quick write. Press pause to write down your answer and play when you're ready. The vocabulary word, our focus question today is, how does Esperanza respond to her new life in camp? And what does this reveal about her as a person? And we have 3 vocabulary words. The first one is cringe. And that's this emoji right here when it's what your face does when you're afraid or you're embarrassed or you're grossed out by something. You cringe, you squish your face up. The second one is bestowed. That's when you give someone like a gift. And then the last one is anticipating, when you're waiting for something and you're excited. All right, so open up to chapter 7. It begins on page 100, I believe. And we are looking for Esperanza's feelings, actions, sayings, and thoughts in these first 5 pages. "We're here," said Isabel, as the truck turned into the camp and slowed to a crawl. Esperanza stood up and looked over the cab. They were in a large clearing surrounded by grape fields. Row upon row of white wooden cabins formed long lines connected like bunkhouses. Each cabin had one small window and 2 wooden steps that led to the door. She couldn't help but think that they weren't even as nice as the servants' cabins in Aguas Calientes. They reminded Esperanza more of the horse stalls on the ranch than a place for people to live. A big mountain loomed in the east, framing one side of the valley. Marta jumped out and ran toward some girls standing near the cabins. Esperanza could hear them talking in English, their words hard and clipped as if they were speaking with sticks in their mouths. She looked ahead at her and laughed. They all looked at her and laughed. She turned away, thinking that if Isabel could learn English, then maybe someday she could learn it too. All right, so the girls are laughing at her, and Esperanza doesn't understand because she only speaks Spanish. And so now she's thinking, well, maybe someday I'll be able to learn English too, so she can understand what's going on. Keep going. A line of flatbed trucks pulled into a clearing, and campesinos hopped down home from the fields. Papa called People called to one another. Children ran to their fathers, yelling, "Pappy, Pappy!" Esperanza felt a deep pang. She watched and wondered how she would fit into this world. Okay, so that's a feeling and a thought. Esperanza is unsure whether or not she's going to fit in at the camp. So that's a good quote to write down for feelings. She's feeling a little insecure, and she's wondering how she's going to fit in America, especially since she doesn't speak English. Keep going. Isabel pointed to a wooden building off to the side. That's where they have all the toilets. Esperanza cringed as she tried to imagine having no privacy. All right. So that's another feeling. When you cringe, we know that you kind of feel, disgusted, and so she's really unhappy with the fact that she's not going to have her own bathroom. Let's keep going. "We're lucky," said Isabel solemnly. "In some camps, we have to go in ditches." Esperanza looked down at her, swallowed and nodded, suddenly thankful for something. So even though she's upset that she won't have any privacy, she is thankful that there is something and she doesn't have to go to the bathroom out in the middle of everyone. A foreman came over and shook hands with Juan and Alfonso and pointed to the cabin in front of the truck. The women got out, took the babies, and helped Miguel with the bags. Mom and Esperanza walked into the cabin. It had 2 small rooms. One half of the front room was a kitchen with a stove, sink, and counter, and a table and chairs. A pile of wood waited near the stove. Across the room was a mattress on the floor. The back room had another mattress big enough for 2 people and a tiny cot. In between sat a wooden fruit crate to be used as a night table, its sides touching each bed. Above was another small window. Mama looked around and then gave Esperanza a weak smile. "Is this our cabin or Hortensia's and Alfonso's?" asked Esperanza, hoping that hers and Mama's might be better. All right, so this is a saying. She's asking, where's their cabin, or is this our cabin? And then Mama says, "We're all together in this cabin," said Mama. "Mama, we can't possibly all fit." Okay, so she's used to her, nice big house, and now she realizes she and Mama are going to have to share a bed in a 2-room cabin, and there's going to be 4 other people in their cabin with them. And Mama says, "Esperanza, they will only give 1 cabin for each man with a family. There's no housing for single women. This is a family camp, so we have to have a male head of household to live and work here, and that is Alfonso." Mama sank to the bed. Her voice sounded tired. "He has told them we are his cousins, and if anyone asks us, we must say it's true. Otherwise, we cannot stay. We are next door to Juan and Josefina, so we can adjust the sleeping arrangements. Miguel will sleep next door with them and the babies, and Isabel will sleep here with Alfonso, Hortensia, and us." Miguel came in and sat down there by Lisa's, then left. Esperanza could hear Alfonso and Hortensia in the next room talking about the camp office. Mama got up to unpack and began to sing. Esperanza felt anger crawling up in her throat. "Mama, we are living like horses. How can you sing? How can you be happy? We don't even have a room to call our own." Okay, make sure you underline that. This is a very important part. Mama is trying to be optimistic. She's trying to have a good attitude. She's, unpacking and singing, and Esperanza gets mad at her because she thinks, they should be upset with their living arrangements. Then the talking suddenly stopped in the other room. Mama gave Esperanza a long, hard look. She calmly walked over and shut the door to the small room. "Sit down," she said. Esperanza sat on the tiny cot, its springs screeching. Mama sat on the bed opposite her, their knees touching. Esperanza. If we had stayed in Mexico and I had married Tio Luis, we would have had one choice, to be apart and miserable. Here we have two choices, to be together and miserable or to be together and happy. Mija, we have each other and Abuelita will come. How would she want you to behave?
Good morning, teachers.
So which will you choose? She knew that Mama wanted to hear happy. She knew what Mama wanted to hear. Happy, she said quietly. Do you know how lucky we are, Esperanza? Many people come to this valley and wait months for a job. Juan went to a lot of trouble to make sure we had this cabin waiting for us when we got here. Please be grateful for the favors bestowed upon us. Mama bent over and kissed her, then left the room. Esperanza lay down on the cot. All right, that's an action you can record. A few minutes later, Isabel came in and sat on the bed. Will you tell me what it was like to be so very rich? She looked at Isabel, her eyes anticipating some wonderful story. Esperanza was quiet for a moment, clinging to one possible thought. Then she said, I am still rich, Isabel. We will only be here until Abuelita is well enough to travel. Then she will come with her money and we will buy a big house, a house that Papa would be proud for us to live in. Maybe we will buy 2 houses so that Hortensia, Alfonso, and Miguel can live in one and work for us again. And you can visit us, Isabel. You see, this is only temporary. We will not be here for long. Okay, please underline this. You see, this is only temporary. We will not be here for long. De veras? Asked Isabel. Yes, it is the truth, said Esperanza, staring at the ceiling that someone had covered with newspaper and cardboard. My papa would never have wanted us to live in a place like this. She closed her eyes and heard Isabel tiptoe out of the room and shut the door. Make sure you underline that saying as well. The weariness from the days of travel flooded over her, and her mind wandered from people peeing in ditches to Marta's rudeness to the horse stalls at El Rancho de las Rosas. How could she be happy or grateful when she had never been more miserable in her life? Make sure you underline that. That's a thought, but also gives us a clue about her feeling. So I want you to go back through these 5 pages and think about the evidence, the fast evidence that you've underlined, and make sure you write down how Esperanza is feeling, what she's doing, what she's saying, and what she's thinking. And make sure you have your quotes to match. And then you have a paragraph. How does Esperanza respond to her new life in the camp? And so you could think about, does she have an optimistic attitude? Does she have a pessimistic attitude? Provide evidence and then tell us why.